again. Welcome back. This is Drew in 32. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba. Episode 3. Drain the Swamp. Which is a phrase commonly used to refer to getting all the corruption out of Washington, D.C., which is actually a swamp, in addition to being corrupt as hell. And so in this episode, I'm going to share a little bit about campaign finance specifically, and more generally just how money has destroyed any sense of a real democracy. And and hopefully in the same flavor and style as the previous two episodes. So if you're listening to this, it means you didn't hate the first couple ones, which is cool. So without further ado, let's jump right in. So in the last episode, I talked a little bit about how Trump's a knucklehead, but really also how he's just a manifestation of a corrupt, a rotten system. And yeah, man, it's really money. I mean, it's money and power, but here I'll specifically speak to how money and private interests have made America, a corporation, essentially, that's more responsible to its investors, or its, it's more about taking from the people and profiting off of the people than it is about actually helping the folks that are voting. Right? Because whether you're aware of this or not, a government like a democracy or a republic, and I forget, I'm gonna mix it up because I'm not a history major, but a government like ours, it's supposed to be that the people have the power and they elect representatives who represent the people's interests as far as making laws or making rules or, how things run. So ideally, like in the best form possible, the people we're putting in the political positions, right, the House or Senate, president, mayors, governors, whoever we're putting in these positions, they're working for the people, ideally, right? So if you are the representative of a certain town or county or state, and the people that you represent, your constituents, they want a new school or better roads or whatever, like that's your job, is to get the people what they want. And there's different debates on like how much do people really know what they want, and and I get it, and some of that's philosophical, but the main jam of somebody who's in civil service, someone who is serving in a position like these politicians do or are supposed to, their main focus is the needs of their people. And that has not been the case in the American government for decades, at least my entire life. The way our government currently runs, and I think it's become more obvious recently because the greed is just taken over and run sanity out of town almost, it seems. But the way our government has been running for a while is that politicians run for office. They have to say the right things and do the right things to get the vote of the people, right? So they gain the confidence of the people like a con man, but they're actually more loyal to the individuals and corporations and organizations that pay for the person's ability to run for office, right? So I'm allegedly running for office in 2032. In order to do that, I would need a ton of money to travel around and to talk to people and to throw events and TV shows and radio advertisements, right? Like there's all of that. And so where does that money come from? And there are ways to do that are ethical and cool and sound, but that's not what we're doing now, right? Like current system is that all of that money comes from private interests, corporations, wealthy individuals, organizations, whatever. And so folks are being elected to office, and instead of serving the people that have chosen them to be there, these politicians are serving the private interests that paid for their ability to run for office in the first place. Right? And so then laws are made, legislation is written and passed that isn't about what people want, it's about what these companies want. And so that's why there's tons of talk about, how billionaires don't pay taxes, or, mega churches don't pay taxes. There's a lot of people who essentially invest in politicians and buy politicians so that then they can have laws written to benefit them. And one example of this is big pharma, right? Like pharmaceutical companies buy the politicians by donating to their campaign funds. And then when the politicians get into office, they then help change or rewrite or pass legislation that then makes it easier for the pharmaceutical companies to do wild shit to get profit, or to not be accountable for creating drug epidemics, shit like that. And so, on a certain level of participating in American society, where most of us are, right, like the common folks, we are, if we're participating in the system, right, we're electing or we're voting for a person that we hope will then do the best job of taking care of our needs, right, and providing for us in our communities. And then we just have to trust the system. But from a bigger perspective, from the billionaires and the elite super rich and the multinational corporations, they buy the politicians, right? And in some cases, they'll fund both sides of a ticket so that no matter who wins, they still have somebody that'll do what they want, right? And so then that's how you get some of these corporations that make billions of dollars and don't pay taxes. This is how you get like a Jeff Bezos or an Amazon or a Walmart, right? Like these companies are investing in politicians to then rewrite the laws to benefit the companies. And I mean, it's super smart. Like I get it. It's essentially like you're working the system, just from like a different angle. And so I dig it. I get it. It makes sense. And maybe if I had $1 billion, I would also do that. But I think at this point in the game, there has to be some recognition that these folks working the system like that is causing lots and lots of harm to the majority of society. Right? And so there's got to be some kind of word. I was playing with like economic treason or something big or elaborate like that. But essentially, if you are gaming the system so hard that it is causing harm to a large majority of the population, like that shit should be like illegal, But again, remember that legality is dependent upon the rules that are on the books, and the rules on the books are being written by the politicians who are being bought and paid for by the corporations. And so Jeff Bezos don't have to pay any taxes and mega churches don't have to pay any taxes. And they're currently trying to raise the taxes of, folks that are closer to the poverty line. It's fucking wild, man. But again, it's because our government currently, the way it is operating, it doesn't really give a shit about the livestock. I mean, the people of the country, because that's really how people are seen, and yeah, man, it sucks. It's a shame. And it makes life difficult and increasingly difficult for more and more people. And we're experiencing that now. Like the big, awful atrocity of a bill that's currently in Congress. Yeah, man. It's just wild. And I talked about this a little bit in the other episode, I think. Just the greed, I guess. Folks must just get so drunk off of the greed and the power that they no longer function rationally. And so it's just keep pushing it. How far can we go? How much more can we get? How much more can we squeeze out of them? And yeah, it's just so gross, man. But there isn't going to be a change in our system while the politicians can still be bought and sold. Right? And politicians, so like senators, House representatives, yeah, we'll say mainly those folks, they have their own like class of society. Like they get their own health benefits. They just kind of live in their own little bubble. And some of these dudes and ladies are career politicians. They've been serving who knows how many terms. Some of them are like 80 years old, like half dead, just passing out in in their office and never showing up for votes. Like it's pretty wild how out of touch with reality this portion of society is, right? And they're just playing a game all the time of like, how can I lie to people or manipulate people or appease the constituents while also taking as much money from, different interests. And then that's a balancing act, right? Because like you can't appear totally corrupt, but also how much money can you get? And also the corruptness, that it just continues to slide in the wrong direction. And so, yeah, these folks who have their own health benefits and, are making six-figure salaries and then also are collecting millions of dollars from private interests. Yeah, these are the folks that are making the laws. So how do you change the way society is structured and government serves the people with these folks being at the wheel? Right? Like it's not going to happen. Everybody's hands are dirty, so like it's going to be a dirty operation. And so there really does have to be a draining of the swamp. There has to be a flip of the representatives. There has to be some sort of audit or something. And I do have a plan for stuff like this. I told y'all I got a plan. That's coming later. But for now, just pointing at the stuff. Yeah, there's got to be something different done in order to clean the swamp, right? In order to put folks in the lawmaking positions that are not corrupted by the private interests, right? Because then the whole game changes. If the House of Representatives and the senators, right, in Congress, if they're actually writing laws for how best to help and take care of the people, well, then you get a society that actually works, right? Because you got a government that's for the people. And really, that's the contract, right? To put someone in as a representative, as a member of government in service like that, the social contract is that they're supposed to be like stewards of the society. And so under their guidance, under their leadership, society's thriving and people are getting what they need. And, you know, like that's how it's supposed to be. That's the actual contract. That's the agreement. But right now, there's a total violation of that. It's awful. And so, you know, elections are happening every so often. And then it's just like, all right, let me pick between two mediocre options, or maybe one seems kind of cool, but you know, or at least I know, you know, that these people are as dishonest as they are honest, right? And so there's going to be some song and dance. There's going to be telling you what you want to hear. There's going to be using particular phrasing in order to create the illusion of things, right? But the whole game is just to get elected, to get into the door. And then once they're in, then the whole agenda flips. You know, like what people run on isn't what they actually do in office. I mean, that's how it's supposed to be. But that's not how it plays out, you know? Yeah. And so, you know, if there's money involved the way that it is currently, there will be no change. Right? I mean, some of these folks have been doing this their whole life or their whole professional life. So 20, 30, 40 years. They're just a career politician. They have tons of connections. And, you know, usually there's a couple main donors, but there's a variety of private interests that will put a couple $100K or a couple mil in a campaign account that may or may not be spent on the campaign, that may or may not turn into a yacht or, you know, little Jimmy's college fund or whatever. Yeah, and then if Big Pharma is giving you $2 million for your campaign, then you know Big Pharma is going to be knocking on your door after you get elected because they need help with, you know, this specific piece of legislation that's messing with their bottom line. And so just scratching backs and quid pro quo kind of stuff, which again all makes sense, but it's all so super corrupt, you know, and these folks are supposed to be serving us, not their own personal interests via bribes and investments from private interests, you know. And it's also how atrocities are inflicted upon people, you know, like the opioid epidemic, right? Like there were rules bent, laws adjusted, all sorts of stuff done, heads, you know, turned, people paid off, all that stuff in order for that situation to manifest the way that it did. And then wipe out a quarter or a third of a generation because of some corporate greed. It's fucking wild. And then also to hold anybody accountable is impossible, right? Because to do that, that would also be the same government officials that took the bribes or took the money or took the investments in the first place. So what are they going to do now? Put in jail the people that paid them? No. Because then potentially they get put in jail too, right? It's so fucked. So it's just a bunch of like corrupt folks from all walks of life, hand in hand, you know, just sinking the ship. And so, yeah, we got to get the money out. Got to create a system where the representatives in government are operating according to some ethics or maybe like a whole ethical code, right? And are less susceptible to corruption. And I'm not entirely sure how to do that, but definitely taking money out, right? Like getting rid of the PACs and the super PACs, right? All the campaign finance accounts. And I would say also, yeah, creating like a equal dispensation for anybody that wants to run for office, right? So that way the playing field is leveled. Because, I mean, if I'm running against Jimmy for, you know, the Senate spot, and Jimmy's taking gabillions from private interests, he can be on TV every 20 minutes, but I'm not. So now, I do a radio ad once a week? Right? So like, how are you reaching people to let them know, to get your message out? And so it's an unfair playing field. That's why everybody has to take the money to compete. But if we can, just give everybody the same amount of money and say that's all you're allowed to have, then that potentially removes a lot of the opportunity for folks to get corrupted and, and start to honor private interests rather than the public interest. So there's a pathway forward, but it's dicey because in order to change any policies, legislation, or laws around any of this stuff, you got to go through the folks who are corrupt. And of course, not every public official is corrupt or totally corrupt, right? Like there's always going to be some good eggs anywhere. But the system as a whole is fucked, right? So like even your best eggs are going to get a little dirty in a system like this. And then, once you're a little dirty, then blackmail becomes a thing. And anywho, you're seeing it a little bit in the Diddy trial, right? And I think a little bit with the Epstein Island stuff too. Like, it's really smart if you want to be in power and in control to have dirt on other people in power and in control, right? Because if you blow the whistle or you put the dirt out there, then that person can get kicked out or canceled or voted down. So there's some people who have just taken it to the nth degree, and it's like, all right, let's just create like blackmail trap situations so that we own people, and and that kind of stuff goes on in the rings of power. Because, power is pretty intoxicating. And, and addicts are willing to do some pretty wild, desperate shit to keep their fix. So, anywho. So I think if we're able to take money out of politics, you just give politicians a set salary and a set dispensation for campaign, and then the playing field is even, and then also you're not going to attract people who are trying to become billionaires, right? Like the way the system is right now, it's attractive for someone who's super greedy and doesn't have scruples to get into public office because they will be able to take advantage of that public office and make tons of money and get tons of favors, right? So like, the way the system currently is, it's attracting the wrong folks for public office. So if we make it less sexy and less like a career route to being a billionaire, then we'll get a different caliber and quality of people who show up for public service. And that right there will solve a lot of the issues. And then we can start to actually make rules and laws and legislation that serves the people again. That reroutes how money is spent, where money goes, where money doesn't go. Yeah, it's possible to make change. It's just a major undertaking. And and there's a lot of obstacles. Like any system that's already in motion and running. It's hard to it's hard to change the oil in a car that's driving down the road. We have a government that's in function. I mean, again, dysfunctionally or in a very corrupt fashion, but it's in process. It's happening all the time. So in order to really drain the swamp or to clean things out or reorient the whole system, that's a pretty dicey enterprise. But it can happen. Yep. And I have ideas about how it can happen, so stay tuned for the plan at the end of the miniseries. All right. Anything else here that I want to share about? Not really. I just wanted to, just really speak to the money here. because the money is all flowing upward, essentially. And as a result, the money is not flowing down, and neither are the resources of the support. And so we as individuals and collectively as a society, we're paying the price, in hardship and fucking egg prices and gasoline prices, and right, like the cost of living continues to go through the roof while the minimum wage or the salary, doesn't move at all, which is wild. I mean, how is that a thing? Like, how is it a thing that life continues to cost more, but nobody gets paid much more? Right? For most of society. And the reason that's a thing is because there's a percentage of society at the top that's actually getting paid tremendously more. Right? And so there has to be a redistribution of that wealth. Corporations and churches and all these economic traders have to pay their share, right? And and we need representatives in government that are willing to hold those entities accountable and then facilitate the transfer of wealth from the elite back to the people, and thus also, improve the quality of life in so many ways. Yeah, it's just wild. Like, what Bezos just had, like, some ridiculously expensive wedding, and I mean, like, the money he spent on that wedding could have funded like 5 programs that made sure everybody like ate and has health insurance or something. Like, it's just wild, man. And I mean, I get it. There's natural drifts that happen over time. And so sometimes you don't realize how far from center you are, or, how far things have gotten off course. But right now, at this moment in time, there's plenty of evidence in our daily experiences that indicates something is fucked. Something is out of alignment. And so if we can take a deep breath, take a step back, zoom out a little bit, it then becomes pretty obvious how fucked things are, right? Like, how out of alignment the priorities of the system is, and the priorities of the people who are serving or supposed to be serving us. And then once we see it, you can't unsee it. So change will ensue from there. But yeah, I think something else here is just how adaptable human beings are. Like, this has amazed me. Like, human beings can adapt to like anything. We're like a cousin of the cockroach in a way, especially like emotionally. But humans will adapt and survive like any other species of life. But but we shouldn't have to. And definitely not in the ways we're being expected to adapt currently. Right? Like, human beings shouldn't have to adapt to having $10 dozens of eggs, or having to choose between health benefits and vacation, or like, the current experience is fucked. And so, again, not blaming any one individual, but seeing the larger system, and hopefully that seeing allows for some new ideas and some new energy to start moving differently. Yeah. So money's got to get out of politics. Can't have career politicians, can't have folks accepting ridiculous amounts of money from private interests and corporations, right? Because that's going to corrupt the political agenda in favor of those private interests. And we need folks who want to serve the people, not folks who want to serve themselves by serving private interests. Yeah, man, because service is like one of the most noblest paths there is. Like for me, when it comes to vets in the military, Like, I always have such deep respect for folks who decide to be in service in that way, right? Like you're potentially giving your life, or you're at least giving years of your life to be in service to ensure the security, the safety, the freedom of your fellow citizen, your fellow man, your fellow person. And that's such a beautiful energy. It's such a beautiful call to service. And yeah, that's amazing. The thing that always I get fucking then mad about is how that is exploited by these fucking chuckleheads that are running the country, right? So you have like the noblest calling being exploited by the pettiest fucking chuckleheads with minimal life experience and minimal scruples. Yeah, it gets me fucking fired up, man. Yeah. And I feel like it's the same thing with Congress, the Senate, House of Representatives, whatever. Like these kind of officials should have the same mindset, right? Like, go do a 4-year term, period, and that's it, and then get the fuck out of there. Don't become a career politician. Like, be in service to your people and your community and their needs for a period of time, because it's a beautiful way to live, and then go live your life after that, right? Like, don't. Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty fucked. Yeah. Yeah. All right. I think I'm done. I got myself all fired up here, so I got to take a deep breath for a second, or I'm just going to quit. Because this shit is super, super frustrating, man. And it's why, at least for me, I just have avoided the political stuff for so long. Because it's so fucked. It's so corrupt. There doesn't appear to be anybody with a shred of dignity, insight that can make change significant enough to impact how fucked things are. And so who cares? Why touch it? Why even talk about it? People just argue about politics without knowing anything anyway. Like, what's the fucking point? But like, fuck, man. Like, this is life. This is the experience of life right now that we are all participating in. And specifically, within the United States. And it can be different. Anywho. I think I'm getting hangry too. So maybe I'll be done for now. But yeah, if we want to drain the swamp, you got to get the money out. That's what makes it a swamp. That's what corrupts the experience. And then, then we have a chance of the right folks being in positions of service with that kind of noble motivation to really help their fellow man. And yeah, man. And like I said, I got a plan. So stay tuned for that. Because, really, you could rebuild and restructure society based on service in a really cool way that allows everyone to serve at different points, and and not make it a corruptible spot. Because that's the other thing too. Like, these career politicians, you get into power, and then you benefit personally, right? Because everybody's buying you off in order to get their needs met. And then when you leave office, then you're still in the mix. And so then you can get paid for all kinds of other shit. Get hired for jobs, paid for gigs. So, it's like, essentially, once you enter that status or that class of society, the rules are different. And how can a group of people who play by completely different rules really effectively support the rest of society, right, that is playing by a separate set of rules? It's out of touch. Like, we need people from the people they represent serving and supporting the people they represent. Like, that's congruent. That's in alignment. All right. I'm really done now. Stay tuned for the next couple episodes. I think they will come sooner than later. Yeah, where I'm going to talk a little bit about where this money can go, right? Instead of into the pockets of the wealthy at the expense of the people, right? If we can kind of reorient the system or bring it back to its more honest roots, then that money can flow differently and and change the quality of people's lives. So that'll be next. And until then, be gentle with yourself, be kind, and I will see you a little further down the road.